Everyone, hi, welcome back to Lead and Learn with Occupational Health and Safety. My name is Amo Mulema. Thank you guys so much for joining me once again on the channel. Now just to get right into it, today's topic, guys, I want us to talk about emergency preparedness for evacuations, for like emergency evacuations in the workplace, in a construction site. Once again, remember me now, my experience is mostly in construction. So emergency preparedness, emergency evacuation in a construction site. How do we go about doing that? Now, guys, just to remind everyone, remember that emergency evacuation and emergency preparedness is actually one of the major jobs and one of the most important duties and jobs of a safety officer, safety rep, safety manager, you name it, but basically a safety personnel. As a safety personnel, emergency evacuation is you have to just be on top of that. If you're on top of anything in your workplace, be on top of emergency evacuation and emergency preparedness. Okay, so we're gonna get right into it, guys. Now remember, the reason to always be ready for an emergency as a safety personnel, the reason you need to be ready at all times is because an emergency can happen at any time, really. At any time an emergency can happen, and you always need to be prepared. Now, how do you know that you are prepared? And how do you also know that you're prepared actually for the right thing? Okay. So, how do you know that you're prepared? How do you know that you are prepared? You will know that you are prepared by following these 6 steps. Number 1, you have to establish your emergency team. These are now all the key vital role players that are going to be involved within this whole emergency evacuation procedure. Now, that will include security. You definitely need security on call. You definitely need security on standby, just to make sure that things are running smoothly, things are running accordingly. Now, security. You know what security means to us. This is South Africa. Okay, this is South Africa, guys. You definitely know what security means to us. You need your first aiders. You need your first aiders to assist you in case of injuries, small injuries. You need your firefighters. In case it is a fire that you have to be fighting, or the emergency situation is a fire, you need firefighters, people who know how to deal with fires, people who know how to extinguish fires. Cool. You need your obviously your supervisors and your managers. They also need to be part of your emergency preparedness planning, in terms of like communicating information to their sections and their teams, basically, just to assist you also as the safety personnel. I'm gonna refer to safety rep, safety officer, safety manager as the safety personnel. Cool. Your external, okay, that is your internal, by the way. That was your internal emergency preparedness team. Now, your external emergency preparedness team, okay, would be maybe security backup, depending on what kind of emergency it is. It would be medical people, like the hospital or an ambulance on call. Yeah, hospital or ambulance on call. Obviously those are gonna assist in coming to the site or coming to the workplace to take people off site, taking any injured people off site and taking them to the hospital. Cool. And then also the police. The police are also key vital players depending on the emergency. It really depends on the emergency, the police I'm just gonna talk about a case of maybe a strike, a riot, they call it, sorry. In the case of a strike, a riot, the police will just assist in keeping the peace. The police will actually work very hand in hand also with the security. They'll just be assisting in keeping the peace in the workplace or during the strike, during the riot. Okay, cool. So now you have established your internal emergency team and your external emergency team. That is the first step that you have to do to ensure that you are sorry, you have the right people on your team. And please, contact details. By contact details, I don't mean a phone that has been checked once. Okay, and by the way, for contact, not only should you rely on a phone, you can also rely on a radio communication system like walkie-talkies, ne? Yeah, we can also rely on those kind of things for easy communication with the external, easy communication within the team. Okay, cool. Now the second thing, you need to analyze the hazard. Remember, we've got extremely different hazards, and different hazards is different emergencies that are presented at the time of the emergency. Okay, what are the kind of emergencies that we could come across in the workplace? Could easily be a fire. A fire is one of the things that one of the hazards that actually affect every single kind of a workplace, really. Fire, bomb threat, earthquake, or thunderstorm. Yes, thunderstorms. Riots, striking. Those are actually, a riot and a strike is actually it's an emergency, and that also needs to be dealt with by a safety personnel. So yes, strike. You need to analyze that hazard. That's step number 2. You're analyzing the hazard. You're checking what kind of an emergency could possibly arise within the workplace. Now this also takes us back to doing our risk analysis, doing our risk assessments every single time, refreshing, revising our risk assessments, just to check the kind of risks that could present themselves, could, not will or have presented themselves previously, but could, anything could happen. The most random, just try to be prepared for the most random strike. But obviously also, when you are analyzing the hazards that are existing, they also need to be quite realistic and relevant to the place. For example, we are in South Africa, Gauteng, South Africa, and we are in different sections of South Africa. Say, for example, one is in Northern Cape. If you're in the Northern Cape, well, there's one section that has a threat of a tsunami. If you're on coastal areas, you've got the threats of tsunamis. But if you're more inland, you don't have a threat of a tsunami or any water related natural disasters. So it wouldn't make sense for a safety officer in Gauteng to have an emergency plan in the case of a tsunami. No, it wouldn't make sense, guys. So obviously, just try to analyze your hazards. So that's why you have to do your hazard analysis. So when you're doing your hazard analysis, that is when you're going to see that this tsunami will never affect us, or this earthquake. Well, earthquakes obviously are every and anyway, but that's where you're going to analyze your threats. Okay, cool. You analyze your hazards, sorry. Cool. Now, number 3 is determining the organization's, your company's capabilities. That means that what resources do you have to be able to overcome an emergency? What skills do you have to be able to overcome an emergency? In fact, not only have, but need. So that's when now you're going to do a skills analysis, resource analysis. Okay. Do we have enough first aiders? During an emergency, you obviously need first aiders. Do you have enough first aiders within the workplace? Do you have enough first aiders? Do you have enough firefighters? Security guard? Do you have enough security guard? Even the ones on backup, do you have enough? Your resources also, you will look at things like vehicles. Do we have enough escaping vehicles. I'll call it escaping vehicles in the case of you guys, if we really need to be evacuated and escaped into somewhere else. Things like sound horns. Do we have enough sound horns in the case of an emergency that will be able to alert everyone on the site? Do we have enough fire extinguishers that will be able to, that the firefighters will be able to extinguish a fire in the case of a fire hazard? Your first aid also, your first aid box, is it fully stocked? Is your first aid box fully stored, or is it just touch and go, this and that, in your box? Next thing, in the case of an emergency, somebody gets injured, you don't even have scissors, man. So those are one of the things that you have to always make sure that okay, that's obviously number 3, and that is resources and skills. Determining the company's capabilities. Is the company ready? Are you guys, is your workplace ready for an emergency to occur? Are you even mentally ready for an emergency to occur? And also, by mentally ready, I mean, do you know how to act? Will you know how to act? Will you know what to do? Will you know where to go, where not to go? Will you know how to act, how to communicate with the people? And will the people also know how to communicate with you or how to react to you? So basically it's that reaction also. I would say the reaction and the response to the emergency situation would also be a good way to determine whether the workplace has capabilities of the correct response to an emergency situation. Okay, so now on to number 4 would be developing your emergency plan. Now you develop your emergency plan, guys, depending on, now you look at your workplace. You look at elevators. How many elevators do we have? You look at the escape routes, back out, the emergency exit routes. Oh, sorry. Yes, emergency exit routes. Do we have enough emergency exit routes? Do we have an assembly point? What happens when we get to an assembly point? Obviously, when you get to an assembly point, okay. Let's do this. I'm just going to give you an example of an emergency plan, that our emergency evacuation drill that I was once a part of. Yep. Okay, so the place had speakers for communication all over the building. There was no section of the building. And the building has a lot of areas. There was no section of the building that was without speakers. And these speakers were for information in terms of emergency or in terms of just general communication. That's what the speakers were used for. So the speakers were used also for emergency sounds. They had like the siren going on the speakers. Now the siren goes off on the speakers. We have 2 emergency exits. 2 emergency exits, and then we also have 4 sets of lift, 1 on the outside, 1 on the back side. 4 sets of lifts. Now during an emergency, not to go to a lift, you go to the stairs. But how do you know that? And how does a person who got nothing to do with health and safety, how would they know that? That's why induction is very important, and that's why also having emergency drills is important. So yeah, we don't use the lifts. We use the stairs, the emergency exits, the stairs down. And on the emergency exit, guys, there's also a wheelchair for disabled people. That now takes us back to the organization's capabilities. Do you have emergency exit resources for disabled people? Those are some of the things we also have to look at. So do we also like accommodate disabled people within the workplace? You find out, you have to look at your people raw. We've got disabled people working for us. How do we get them to safety? Okay, I'm sorry, now I'm just taking you back to analyzing the hazards and your organization's capabilities. Okay, cool, but it's fine, it's not a crime. So yeah, we're still developing the plan. Now you're developing your plan, you're looking at, those are the things that you have to look at, and then you inform your people. We pass when you're going down, you go down the stairs on the left, and if there's any emergency people have to come up the stairs on their left, meaning it's your right, ne? So you guys will be going down the stairs on the left, they'll be coming up the stairs on your right. That's only for emergency people. And people need to be able to know not to cause a stampede, not to run, not to panic and cause that whole messed up situation where everybody's just running and now it's a big stampede. And remember, it's down the stairs, so also you don't want people to run because it's down the stairs. You want people to walk down the stairs, paced but do not run, ne? Meaning hurry up but don't run. Cool. When you get downstairs, what are you going to do? You guys get there, do you look at each other? What are you going to do? You get downstairs, that's when your supervisors come into play. Your supervisors have to do a head count for their team, specific to their team. You do a head count specific to your team. Your supervisors will report back to the emergency personnel or the safety officer, emergency manager. You report back to them and say, okay, my people, they are fine. Or actually, there's one person missing. Emergency preparedness. If there's one person missing, what do you do? What are you supposed to do? That's when you go and you plan. Now, okay. Now, back to what I was saying. In our case, when somebody is trapped, remember, first of all, we had emergency personnel going up on the right-hand side, ne? Going up, looking at every floor, checking for emergency situations or checking for people that are trapped inside, things like that. But now, if it happens that you are trapped and you don't know whether you are stuck or you're not stuck, what must the person do? What must a person do? Induction. You will let them know during induction, toolbox talks, you will let them know that if you find yourself trapped inside, you can maybe signal. You can signal that someone is trapped, that you are trapped inside, or you can let them know to shout for help, open windows, shout for help, signal, waving a paper, waving a flag. Yeah, okay. I almost said something, but that one is definitely not allowed. Okay, so you develop your emergency plan, you do your head count. After you do your head count, you find out that everybody is there or somebody's missing, then you send your emergency personnel to go and look for the people. Remember, within your plan, you have also included that you need people who are trained in firefighting. Within your plan, you have included that you need people that are good at first aid. Or if you guys do not have those kind of capabilities or those kind of skills and resources within the company, you have to seek. I'm actually looking for the right word. You have to seek external services. Sorry, that was not the word, but it's fine. You have to seek external services, guys. So obviously, like Netcare, is it Netcare? These private fire brigade, the private fire brigades and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, I forgot their name, but yeah. Private fire brigade, private ambulances, private firefighters, those kind of services, ne? We need to include them in the emergency plan. When you include them in the emergency plan, they also have to be a part of your emergency team. I get Just remember that. Cool. Now we move on to step number 5. Step number 5 is training and exercise. Now this is where the drill comes in. The evacuation drill comes in. When you've got your plan, now you've got your plan, you know who your emergency people are, you've posted out your emergency contact numbers at the right place, you've identified your assembly point, your security, your emergency team is informed that they are part of emergency situations or emergency preparedness in your workplace. Now all systems go. Now we start with the evacuation drill. Evacuation drill basically is just like practice run. You know, it's a practice run to say it's for the workers, for the people on site. It's obviously for everyone, clients included, but it's for everybody in the workplace, everyone in the site, everyone involved to practice. You know, it's basically for everyone to practice, to make sure that everybody is familiar, to familiarize themselves, to make sure that everybody's familiar with this plan. And trust me, the more you practice is the more perfect and good you will be in responding to an emergency situation. Cool. Now, when you're doing an evacuation drill, guys, it has to be just as real, just as good, just as urgent. Ne? If it means you call the police, let them come to the evacuation drill. When they get there, I don't really know how realistic this sounds, but when they get there, you'll tell them it was a drill. And we have to practice. It's actually by law, guys. It's a law that you have to practice an evacuation drill every single 3 months. Every 3 months that you guys are in existence, or the workplace is in existence, you have to have an evacuation drill. Ne? So if the police come and be like, you're calling us for a false thing. Yes, it's a false alarm, but we needed to be able to see the response time. And what you're doing is not illegal. It is not. Sharp. Okay, but let's just leave the police situation out. But obviously, your firefighters, you call them. Your ambulance, you call them. Your security backup, especially your security backup, because I remember now that's also your internal services. You want to see how they respond. So they are also part of the people that you call, definitely. Everyone who's included in your emergency team, you call them. When the time arises, you call them, you let them know, or you are in a situation, you are in an emergency, you need their assistance. How soon can they be here? And then their response is also timed. And then, guys, during the drill, obviously, but okay, fine. As important as the emergency team's response is, so is the workers' response. Ne? The employees' response, guys. It is extremely important. It is extremely vital. I mean, the drill is mainly for them to be familiar with the evacuation procedure, and also to see whether they'll be able to respond in time. Because sometimes we have people that, during an emergency, you'll hear the sound and be like, but I'm still busy with something. Let me just finish this thing real quick. That's not the correct response. And that is the response that you need to avoid, because then that person, if you have that kind of response and that kind of reaction by the team, by the employees, by the workers, everyone's life is in danger at that point, at that very moment, everybody's life is in danger. He just put himself in danger. He put other people in danger, because now you are costing us having to come and look for you, putting us more in danger. Yabo? So that is one of the kind of responses that you just need to avoid by all means. Cool. And that is why we have to have emergency evacuation drills, to also see who are the people that are having a funny attitude towards this thing. Then you need to once you've identified that somebody's got a weird attitude towards the evacuation drill, you sit them down, you let them know why we have to have drills and what is the importance of having an emergency drill. And also, guys, just to remind everyone, I know you know this, but remember, having an evacuation drill also is a secret. It's you and your emergency team, or maybe just you and your safety rep, your safety manager. That's all. Like, not everybody has to know, honestly. Even the firefighters, they don't have to know. Even the security, they don't have to know. Nobody really has to know that it is a drill, because it has to be treated as just as urgent as an emergency situation. Yabo? So always try to keep it on the DL. Cool. Now, once you have done all of this, you've established your team, you've analyzed the hazards, you've determined the organizational, the workplace capabilities, you've developed your emergency plan, you've done your evacuation drill. Now you sit back and you reminisce, how did everything go? How did everything go? Were the people responding in the right way? Did I respond in the right way as a safety personnel? Did the emergency team respond in the right way as emergency people? How can I improve this going forward? Because remember, this was just the drill. So drills are also very important in evaluating the whole thing. Does it work? Does your plan work? Is your plan working? So that's why you also need to have drills. So you sit back, you do a review, you analyze that review, you see where the cracks are, and then you try it again in 3 months or less. Can try it again next week or tomorrow. Just annoy them. But yeah, guys, so I know this video was long, but thank you for staying with me until this long. I mean, I think this is very, very important information, and one of the most important things as safety officers and safety reps, safety managers, safety personnels, remember, as safety personnel, that this is one of our most important jobs, or tasks rather, ne? So I hope you guys and also, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, learned a thing or two, and see you next time. Until next time, guys, bye.